After finding some holes in the Formula One rules, Aston Martin is happy to admit that it has some clever ideas for its new car for 2023. However, these ideas probably don't hold a candle to the alleged tricks with the budget cap. They ended up being fined $450,000 because its 2021 Formula One budget cap submission incorrectly excluded and/or changed costs in 12 places. But now, weeks before the start of the new season, the cheating allegations seem to have resurfaced from an unexpected source. Most of the teams' new cars look like they were influenced by Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, but Aston Martin's AMR23 definitely has some Red Bull features. But this is not the first time they have done this. The fact that Aston Martin's technical chief, Dan Fallows, used to be in charge of aerodynamics at Red Bull adds some controversy to the fact that they based their car design on the clearly most successful car from the previous season. Mercedes started 2022 with side pods and Ferrari made theirs a little longer than usual. Aston Martin, on the other hand, copied Red Bull's design and made their side pods more detailed. A very smart tactic from the Silverstone team, avoided punishments last year, but as it stands, that would not be the case this year. As part of the 2022 regulations, the rear wings were simplified and the FIA created designs in which the main plane transitioned smoothly into the end plate, which could only stretch below the wing surface. But Aston Martin has created a more complex design that effectively recreated the end plate. Because of that, there were concerns about the rear wing geometry being illegal. It fulfilled all the required location and radius demands, even if it did make for a more complex end plate than perhaps intended thanks to the innovative way those radius of curvature regs had been applied. But for 2023, their armchair wing will be banned. Pat Simmons, who is in charge of technical matters for F1, says that it had the potential to make the cars go in the wrong direction. The unique design that the Silverstone team used at high downforce tracks in the second half of the season got a lot of attention in Hungary. This year, Formula One started a new era of technical rules. The cars are now based on ground effect aerodynamics and have simpler wings to help clean airflow off of them. In the new rules, the FIA says the curve must be built into the end plate. This makes the low-sided shapes we have seen all over the grid. These designs make clean outwash, which in theory disturbs the air around the part much less and makes the airflow for cars behind it cleaner. Then came the Aston Martin rear wing, which was legal according to the FIA's rule, but not really in the spirit of the rules. When it was introduced at the Hungarian Grand Prix, the wing looked more like the rear wing from last season than the ones from 2022. Tom Mekaloff, performance director of Aston Martin, was gracious when the FIA banned the wing, even though he thought it gave the car a clear advantage. Even though the Briton understood why the FIA made the decision, he was proud of his team for coming up with something new when the FIA had done everything they could to make sure there were no grey areas in the rules. Before Aston Martin showed off the AMR23 at their factory in Silverstone on Monday, the team's chief technical director Eric Blandin hinted that they had used some interesting ideas, saying that they are not a must-have but are welcomed. "We've put some clever innovations into the new car. They are the icing on the cake," he says in an interview published on the Aston Martin website. "They are a nice to have, but not a must-have. It's great when you find a little loophole and you can use it to your advantage. But it's not often that you can build an entire car around it." The fact that the technical director of the Silverstone-based team is happy to say that engineering flaws exist in public may be a hint at the real work that goes on behind closed doors. Instead, it's important to get the basics right, and then you can add things. When you start a new car project, you have to find out what the limitations of the previous year were and how you can overcome them with the new design. You have to determine the architecture that has the most potential for the future. If you follow the wrong concept, you can limit yourself and run out of ways to develop, and that's a very difficult situation to get out of. However, a very interesting thing to come out of this whole situation is that an alleged whistleblower in the form of an Aston Martin factory employee, in a statement for the Judge 13 website, this source describes a system put in place to circumvent the budget cap by having AM employees paid by different companies outside the racing team. It's no secret that Aston Martin has put a lot of money into their F1 program. It's important to note that these allegations have not been confirmed yet, and there may be another explanation for the circumstances described. The former Aston Martin boss Otmar Zafnauer confirmed that the budget cap dodging is prevalent in top teams and that some teams are trying to find loopholes to bring in more people under the budget cap. It is important that FIA and FOM take these allegations seriously and take appropriate steps to ensure that all teams are acting within the rules. It's important to maintain the integrity of the sport, that all teams can compete fairly against each other. It remains to be seen how the investigation will proceed and what the outcome will be. Since the AMR23 looks a lot like the Red Bull, the Green Bull accusations from last year's Spanish Grand Prix could come up again, even though Dan Fallows and the rest of the team say they are developing their car on their own. Aston Martin looks to be focused on the new season though. The car is looking aggressive. After a tough start to the 2022 season, where the Silverstone-based team had to change its plan early on, it thinks it has made a good step over the winter. Dan Fallows, the technical director, said that the new AMR23 was 95% different from its predecessor and that the team had made some important changes for 2023. This includes a heavily redesigned front wing, new side pods with a much more aggressive, sweeping inner ramp and a different engine cover with a larger roll hoop inlet. The layout of the wishbone doesn't look as simple as some of the other teams' designs. Instead of just a top and bottom wishbone, it looks like there are several links. Before F1 goes to Bahrain, there will be changes to the cars and things that are still a secret because the teams don't want to give anything away before the season starts in a couple of weeks. There might be some tension between Alonso and Stroll because of their collision last year at the US Grand Prix. Can we see Aston taking a step forwards in 2023 with those two in the driver's seats? If there are opportunities for a top 10 finish or even podium, Aston Martin has the necessary firepower. Alonso is a living legend of the sport and Stroll is not a guy who can crack under pressure. He is stubborn, which was proven a lot of times with Vettel, so there is a chance that he could be the same with Alonso as well. But apart from all of that, Aston Martin are on the top, and with the new facilities in 2023, they are looking forward to the upcoming challenges. Alonso even went as far as to say that his aspirations are to fight for the championship title. From what he said about this season, it sounds like Aston Martin may be putting on a few shows this year. They came in 7th in 2022, and since they had the same number of points as Alfa Romeo, they will be keeping an eye on them. So, given this steep growth curve, Aston Martin may be hopeful that it can keep going in the same way until 2023. With Alonso in the car, if they can build a good midfield contender over the course of the year, the Spaniard can give Alpine and McLaren a run for their money. Fighting for the best of the rest spot in P4 may still be a tall order. But if Aston wants to be in the top 3 soon, they have to try this jump in the middle of the field. This season, McLaren and Alpine still have a better chance of being the midfield leaders. Still, Aston might have a small chance. What are your thoughts about these allegations? Think it will hinder Aston Martin's chances in this new season? Let us know in the comments below and see you in the next video.